When the legislative session begins in January, Governor Cuomo will be working in uncharted territory with a coalition Senate majority made up of the Senate Republicans and the Independent Democratic Caucus and one disaffected Democrat from Brooklyn. However, if you include those 5 breakaway Dems with the main Democratic conference, there is a numerical majority that could, in theory, pass many progressive agenda items championed by the governor. Last night, we were actually the first to report on Twitter that the conference elected a new leader. She is Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins. She hails from the Westchester area. She is the first female legislative conference leader in New York State history. She is joining me in the studio tonight. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That is quite an accomplishment.
It is. The fact is that in our legislative chambers, less than 25% of the members are female. And even in Congress, I think we were talking a little before this show that, that about 17% of women occupy seats in Congress. So quite honestly, it is a feat. But because New York is a progressive state, I was even surprised to find out that I was the very first woman to ever have a conference leader position.
And a woman of color.
And a woman of color. Yes, yes. I wouldn't have been surprised to have been the first woman of color, because when I presided over the Senate a couple of years back, I had become the first woman of color to ever preside over the Senate.
Sitting on the dais.
Yes.
You mean. It was during the coup, or
well,
not
it was
during
before,
the coup?
No,
before
no,
the coup.
I had yes, that had been my role. Since when the Democrats took the majority,
Right.
I was one of the presiding officers. It's just so happened because of the coup, people actually paid attention
to who was
on a daily
there?
basis.
Yeah.
But the reality was is that I was one of the presiding officers, but I was the very first woman of color to ever do it.
Did you, I mean, you didn't actively seek this. I mean, your name was floated on many occasions as a compromise leadership candidate because the Democratic Conference is so fractious. It has been for years, breaking along geographical lines, along racial lines, along, I don't know, many lines, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we have these breakaway Dems, as I mentioned before. What was it that convinced you that this was something you wanted to do?
I kept hearing it just like you did. And frankly, I'm very happy as a senator. I love public service. I enjoy making good things happen for my constituents and for the people of New York State. But I heard it over and over again. And I think we were at a crossroads. We were at a crossroads where the public perception of Democrats in the Senate could have been better. And the claims of whatever they thought we were about were getting louder than the actual good work that we were doing. So it seemed that with so many new members, and as you said, with the statistical majority, we needed an opportunity to show the people of New York that we're not dysfunctional. We've done a lot of great work. We are here to do much more good work. And part of that, I think, the Senate took a look at was how do we portray that? And electing a new leader kind of sends that message.
The man that you're replacing, John Sampson,
Yes.
who viewers are familiar with, I'm sure, was in many ways the impediment towards the IDC coming back. He and Jeff Klein had a difficult relationship, Jeff Klein being the head of the IDC.
Yes.
Do you believe now that you, as the leader, opens the doorway? Are you hoping that this brings those Democrats back?
I'm certainly hoping that. I mean, they did say that that was an impediment, that John Sampson's leadership would preclude them from returning. So that impediment is not there.
Have you spoken to them?
I will be speaking to Jeff. I will be reaching out to Jeff tomorrow. Today has been an extremely busy day.
I can only imagine.
And so I wanted to make the rounds and have people meet me and so on. But it is certainly my intent to reach out and sit down with Senator Klein. We've had a good relationship during many, many years. We've worked on things together. All of the members of the IDC, frankly, have worked with me on a variety of occasions. And I think that there's a desire to get the agenda done. So likely, we will have to be a partner in anything that they are thinking
regardless
of
if
doing.
they come back or don't come back.
Exactly.
Because it is a closely divided chamber, because they are their own conferences, Jeff Klein has said so many times. Your number 2, will that be Mike Chinaris?
I have not made an announcement about that, but I can promise that I will in the next day or so. And so I know that you would love that breaking news.
We would.
And I would love to, but I will break some news for you sometime in the future, but I won't break that right now.
Do you envision, though, that you would change things significantly? I mean, the conference has been, again, through a roller coaster. I think stability is something that the whole conference really would like to see. Is there something that you think that you'll be able to do to bring that quickly, stability, to the conference?
I think frankly, the conference, again, the conference is plagued by a lot of perceptions, and I understand. We do have a lot of independent voices. We do have people who are clear about how they feel about things. But the reality is we've got a lot of very bright, committed Senate people who know exactly why they're here. And unfortunately, again, the perception has been one that has made it even more difficult for us to function. So again, we have new leadership, we have new senators, we have most of the senators who are remaining are excellent, and everyone is really ready to just roll up their sleeves and get the people's business done.
What about Andrew Cuomo? I mean, what do you envision will be the Senate Democrats' relationship with him? They generally, as a conference, trend to his left. So that could be potentially problematic for him, particularly if he puts through more fiscally conservative agenda items, and of course the state's fiscal situation is not fabulous. But for example, I'm thinking of like Tier 6, which the Democratic Conference walked out on rather than vote for, because they were upset also about the redistricting plan.
I was going to say, we did actually walk out on the redistricting.
As a result,
we weren't expecting to vote on Tier 6.
As a result, there was no vote. There were no votes cast by the Democrats.
Right.
So what kind of relationship do you imagine you'll have with him?
Well, I met with the governor today. I met with him and several members, and we had a very, I think, heartening conversation about his agenda. Of course, he wants his agenda passed, and his agenda looks very similar to ours. So we talked about working together as partners, trying to find ways that we can push forward. And I think the commitment is really, again, a professional, substantive, productive session. And we're willing to work. We want to be partners with the governor. We want to get our work done.
The devil's in the details, though, of course, because he says, I'll put forward a campaign finance reform bill. I'll put forward a minimum wage bill. You will know where I stand, he says. But at this point, we don't know exactly the details. Do you imagine, though, and I've spoken to some of your colleagues, that they say if a good bill comes to the floor, such that one that we could support, we will vote and we will provide, if necessary, the deciding number of votes. If a bill we don't like, maybe like a minimum wage bill without indexing, for example, comes to the floor, we will not have a problem voting it down. But if it dies, because of the Democrats voting it down, what kind of message does that send to the voters?
Well, and those are the kinds of conversations that we are hoping, as partners, we don't have on the floor. That when we work to make sure that our objectives are met, we know a lot of people are depending upon us raising the minimum wage. We know a lot of people are depending upon us doing mandate relief or reforming stop and frisk. We know there are a lot of our constituents waiting for reproductive health, for the Reproductive Health Act to be done. And we understand that, you know, you may want it certain ways, but you may eventually wind up with something that might be a little different, but not significantly different. But the whole process is what is going to make the difference. And I think that certainly the governor does have an agenda that is quite progressive and realizes that we are likely partners. So I am hoping, and we talked about the fact that as long as there's dialogue and we are working together to craft that bill, I don't think that the scenario that you present is really going to happen that often.
Did you ask him to get involved? Because up to this point he has declined. He says, well, you know, it's your house. The legislature has a house of senators, a house of assembly members, and it's not my place to get involved. But if you don't pass my agenda, Dean Skelos, I'm coming after you. I mean, he did say that. But many Democrats have called on him, particularly Democrats who are black and Latino, because they feel that their constituents and their members, your
Sure.
conference are being disenfranchised. So should the governor get involved?
No, I did not ask the governor to get involved.
No.
Again, I think we all know what we have to do. And as I said, as far as people who are elected to be on a certain line, to come and conference with the people of the party that they actually voted for them on, I think that the real people who are being disenfranchised, frankly, by an arrangement where people veer off from the party that they said that they were going to be working with are the voters. And I think that's a real issue. And obviously there are so many constituents who sent certain people there and expected their voices to be heard. I think that if we do the things that we are focused on for our constituents, then we will make the very best point of why Democrats need to be statistically and realistically, in fact, in charge in the majority. But we're going to work step by step to do it. And so right now, we're taking the cards as they're being dealt, and we're keeping our eyes on the objectives of making sure good legislation gets passed. And I think that's what the governor wants to do as well.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting year.
It's going to be fun.
You've got a challenge ahead of you.
Yes, I do.
Congratulations again
Thank
later.
you so much.
And thank you very much for spending time with us.
It's really nice to be here.